Welcome to the April 15th Jail and Zones production user call. We have Dan, Jan, Lasse, Jamie, and myself, Michael, so far. And Jan, it sounds like you've been working on fixes for various escapes, but Jamie, you've got the floor because it's your project of maintainership. Any news to share?
The only news is tax season is over and I am available for the calls again.
Welcome.
And I'm just catching up on what the priorities are for 15.
Ooh, that's a great topic. Okay, on that very note, let's ease into it with Jan having some updates on some potential fixes for jail escapes. Let's talk 15.0 goals. Okay, uh, Jan, would you like to catch us up on your work?
I will try to keep it short. So this is about bug 262179, jail escape via file descriptor parsing. This either requires you to have a shared nullFS to establish a connection between different jails or to inherit it into jail processes, which is a way you can effectively undo a jail attach to the file system and thereby effectively use cron or other vulnerable processes on the host to get code execution again. So you can effectively, without precondition, undo a jail attach, and with the nullfs, you can do a complete jail escape. And I tracked the problem down to the case that in VFS lookup, the kernel loops, if it finds a dot dot entry in a directory, the VFS lookup code will loop through all the nested jails and compare the currently traversed directory against the vnode pointer to the jail root directory. And if it doesn't match, it does the normal behavior and goes in the parent directory. And if you start out from a directory outside of your jail root directory, none of these will match. And so you can go up to the true root directory, then do a change root to your current working directory, and you have now a process which is jailed but has the host root directory as its change root directory, and you're completely out. You can run linked executables in a state where you have a full file system, but access but other jail restrictions like loading kernel modules still apply. But in this state, it's trivial to use, for example, the add command or just edit the global cron tab and wait a minute to get code execution. But for most things like adding a new public key to root's authorized key file, you don't even have to do that. So the first attempt at a fix, I wrote overlooking the problem that you don't have to use a mount point as your jail root. So the jail root could be renamed, and that means that you can't do it by path because the path is only valid during jail creation. And afterward, the jail parameter path string is just a stale cache string and not something you can validate against. So instead, I go through the VFS code and use name_i to try to walk up the directory tree, obtaining shared logs on all directory vnodes while walking up until I find a loop, which is a root directory, or I hit my jroot. And then I, in reverse order, release them afterward. And I accumulate the first error into the error variable. And yeah, if I encoded an error, I return an error. And if I haven't found it, so effectively it's a malicious directory or one which the jail cannot safely contain, I return error not permitted on receive message. But I'm not sure that the locking of the vnodes is good enough to prevent someone from renaming the directory, because I haven't found any official documentation on which locks do I have to hold to prevent another kernel thread from concurrently renaming one of the directories. So there's a bit of guesswork.
Okay. I think I get the general idea here.
The idea is
I
to
have no
stop
answer on the locking.
the idea is to prevent the attack by validating that the jail can safely contain the past file descriptor within the UMP externalize function in the Unix socket implementation, as you can see from the patch I linked to. It's fairly self-contained, but I thought that the code belongs in kern_jail.c, not in the socket implementation.
Jan, what was your verb for the description there? Prevent the attack by validating with jail can something the past file descriptor.
And safely contain the past file descriptor.
Thank you.
So that does not give you a capability you can combine with your jail's authority to form something stronger. So yeah, basically maintain the edge condition that you're never violating the invariant the kernel so far only implicitly assumed instead of actually enforcing it.
Who do we think could best answer about the locking? And is this hitting review or PR, or where will this patch live for review?
Right now, it's attached to the bug report in Bugzilla.
Oh, may have missed it there.
In the one you mentioned, 262179.
Yes.
Okay.
You also put it in the minutes of today's call.
Right. I will drop this in chat for those who need it there. Maybe I missed it in attachments at the top. Oh, here we go. La la la. Thank you. From yesterday. Thank you. There it is. Got it. Okay. Any questions or comments on this particular one?
So it needs review from someone familiar with the virtual file system layer.
Amen. VFS expertise review. Moving on, would you like to discuss 282.041?
That one already has an attached patch and just needs someone reviewing the patch.
Okay.
The problem is that single file nullf does not properly record the mount path as in the rewritten form, but the nullfs view of it, which means you cannot really unmount by path.
Moving on, anything related to 284.961, which you say is sort of working as intended?
Jamie already commented on that. It's a consequence of users being allowed to specify a jail block by jail ID instead of name. In that case, the jail parser or jail.conf parser will just punt on the issue and use it as jail ID, leaving the name variable unbound. And you can then, and only then, have a jail where you assign the $name parameter. And this possible works as Jamie intended, kind of, but it's not documented and quite confusing to someone coming from Proxmox, where it's common to use numbers as names, apparently.
Interesting.
I don't have the link ready, but I also reported an issue where I found a bug in the jail.conf parser, where if you assign multiple values to a variable and then try to expand it in a other variable. So basically you say x plus equals foo, x plus equals bar, and then y equals $x, the parser will crash
Oh, dear.
instead of
Okay.
returning an error, but only if there's nothing but the variable reference in the string. Having even a white space on either side, left or right, of the variable reference makes the parser return an error that multi-valued strings cannot be expanded. But if you only have the expansion in the value, then it crashes the jail command on parsing. We'll just try to dereference the null pointer, I think.
Is that fully reproducible? Sounds like it might be.
Yes.
Cool. What form do you think that will take? Just another problem report?
Catching this special case in the way the past string values are stored. It has to catch it, really handle this error on expansion. It's that the expansion didn't consider the case, but basically the left and the right neighbors in the list can be null pointers. Something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too hard to fix. Well, I like the idea of actually being able to expand it in a string. There's already more than one possibility on what the best separator character is. And so you'd
New
have to
line.
start writing a function to, say, expand it with this character or something.
Or you could do it the shell way and have IFS. Mm, But joking aside, I think in 99% of the cases, new line is an acceptable separator and the most reasonable one.
Yeah, well,
Not in all.
back when I wrote this, comma was the acceptable one. And so it is the one that already gets used to create multi-valued variables in a single string. So it would be the sensible one in that reason to reflect it. But yes, comma since has fallen out of fashion for some reason, and new line is the new comma. So there we
Um,
go. See, there's no agreement.
the new line is very useful because it allows you to effectively merge multiple lines in a script.
This is true. I can see why it's useful. It's just there is not going to be any only thing.
No, it's not.
Comma is useful because you can use it on a command line without having to figure out how to escape new lines. So, different things are useful for different reasons. Everything is useful because it's not a character you expect the value to contain, unless you have a value
Heck,
that
you
you
could
expect
also
to
Let him
contain
have.
that.
finish. Let him finish.
I did. Yeah, I'm just ranting, so no need to let me finish.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
if you're adding any kind of expanding with special meaning, having the option to expand with, say, shell quoting would also be nice.
What? So coding?
Basically, run it through Strivis.
This is why I think the easy solution is to just continue to not allow expanding.
But
At
the
least we ought to
workarounds
do
are
that first.
ugly and sometimes not even really possible.
Well, I don't think we'll forever solve that one right here and now, but hey, let's not crash the parser. So thank you for pointing that out. Let's see. It sounds like Lasse is having audio trouble, no pun intended, so we'll get an update on Kleene, unless it's a text-based update you can share or a link, actually, that would be a great one. So I forget who put this in recently, maybe last week, but it was like, hey, questions about uh, behavior with lingering file descriptors. Ooh, and here is a bug report. Let's see what you got, Jan. Is that per the last one or something new?
Yes, that's the last one.
Let's take a look. Okay. And while we do that, John and Mike, welcome. It sounds like one of you want to be a fly on the wall, which is perfectly acceptable. And this was from January 1st, January of this year. And Mike, do you have any topics?
Chat. Hang on a second.
Is this your first call?
Got them. So, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Ah. No, I just dropped in. I saw the meeting was being held in the Discord with jails and bugs. So I just thought I'd pop in and see
Cool.
what bugs you're talking about, kind of a thing. My personal experiences, I haven't run into any bugs, but you're talking about parsing bugs here in the configuration. Is that correct?
Well, we've just touched on a parsing bug. We've been looking at some more gnarly jail escapes through various, be it file descriptors or nullfs and other things that
Really?
have some
Actual
proposed
like
fixes.
security related escapes kind of a thing?
Under very specific circumstances, sometimes with help from potentially another user, which may not
Hmm.
truly elevate it as a risk. So Jan's been diligently working on both proofs of concept and fixes. And thank you, Jan. And if you don't know Jamie, he is the jail maintainer who's been under various rocks and has finally rejoined
Yeah.
the calls. So do you want to tell us about yourself at all?
Well, I know Dan. I recognize that name,
That
but
guy, yeah.
I've been a FreeBSD user. Geez, I don't want to date myself, like almost 30 years now. So yeah, I just dropped in to see like what's going on here. I don't know. I'll comment wherever I see that it might be of use, but just observing for now.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a personal specialty within the OS, be it a favorite component, be it
I'm an old school system administrator, but professionally speaking, I've used FreeBSD in a lot of different commercial environments, so to speak. Um, I mean, well, we all know this. It's great, like for storage and networking, and it's a workhorse in the back end, right?
it
It served me
is?
well there, and I've used it in different. Like my last company I worked for was a A2P SMS messaging company that served the Canadian government, and that was a bit of a mess. We had to convert them from a Windows .NET system that was just poorly designed, and we moved them to FreeBSD actually.
Hmm.
But other technologies such as Postgres and RabbitMQ for message queuing and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm just an old school sysadmin.
Awesome. Well, welcome. And yeah, you probably see the value in having calls that focus on, well, jail zones, OpenZFS, and Beehive
Yeah,
because they
I love
move mountains.
ZFS for sure. Yeah, ZFS is freaking amazing. I mean, by far, I would argue it's probably one of the best operating the file systems and volume managers all in one, right?
At any price, yes.
Mm-hmm. The price is zero.
Exactly. Well, regardless, even if you were to pay for Veritas or NetApp, if
I
you could
mean,
magically
you
license
gotta
it,
got
still.
somebody that knows how to use it, of course, but other than that, like, come on.
Cool. So it sounds like you're in Canada, and have you attended BSDCan?
I am in Canada. I have not. I've always
Oh,
wanted
gotta
to.
fix that. Yeah.
Hopefully, opportunity will show up where I can do that and get more involved. But yeah.
Well, I hope to see you there. Dan may back me up on that.
Hmm.
Uh, it is in June, I believe.
Is it
They
coming
seem
up
like
this
nice
June?
people.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
it in Ottawa?
it is at the university,
Okay. Well, it's about
bsdcan.org.
1,000 clicks away from me, but yeah,
It's a big country.
jet flight.
Cool. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
John, did that inspire you? You still listening in? Oh, there we go. At work. Yeah, okay. So you'd prefer the US pronunciation of VFS, and I totally get it. I'm reading your comment here. Well, welcome, welcome.
Is it ZFS or ZFS? I always
Well,
call it ZFS.
it depends on your neck of the woods, and it's been fascinating to watch Alan Jude kind of
Yeah,
ping
Alan
pong
Jude's
between those.
definitely authority on ZFS. Well, that's the way my brain pronounces it, ZFS.
Yeah, and some of us try to adjust for the context, but not always successfully. Okay, moving on. Any other topics, questions, ideas, or hey, wish list items for 15 is our jail descriptors here and everything that was it Dave and I believe Igor were working on. FreeBSD 15.0 goals. So I'm doing that just from memory. Jail descriptors. Let's see. Jail descriptor status.
Status is no different than before, other than
Of
once again, I will tell you, yeah, gonna get going on that.
cool. Well, you're out from under a certain rock. That's cool. I can provide caffeine products here in Oregon if you need. So there's that. Coming along. And what was it that Jamie was working on? I can scroll. I'm Dave and his colleague. Let's see. I'll do a quick search here. I know they recently had questions about OCI runtime naming. Jan, do you recall any 15 goals that might need some attention?
Are these like general desirables for 15 to go live, or?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And the metadata update here is waiting on feedback. There's Igor's video. I just found that from a previous meeting, so I'll drop that in there.
I know package update has been a bit of a roadblock. Like the new package command, it needs to support the installing of the actual system itself.
Oh,
And
for
that's
package
been,
base?
yes, that's correct. You're right.
Yes. Yes. Oh, this is very thoughtful. And by extension, one would argue also for jails, and a bunch of us, like well, Jan and I, have had our hacks to do it with, but it would sure be nice to have that institutionalized,
Hmm.
which brings up further questions of what do, say, uh, application meta packages for certain roles look like. So here's that review. Okay, well, let's hope that closed. Oh, is that related to it? I like closed.
I guess they're trying to
General.
get package to kind of be the one all be all kind of a tool for it. Remove FreeBSD update and all that.
That is one approach, and I guess I'm in the whole better late than never category. I sure wish we had that long, long ago. Ah, yes, and bootstrapping.
Yeah, I mean, I still do a lot of updating, upgrading with source, just compiling, but
Sure,
that sounds like a good option to have that.
they're just different tools in the tool chest. So
And
there are situations for
compiling
each.
from
Go ahead, Jan.
source is not prohibited by package base because you can just run make packages or make update packages for a patch, and you get your new repository. And then you only have to build your custom site-specific FreeBSD once on one server and can deploy it to all your servers so that you know that they are in sync.
Cool. Other thoughts, ideas, concerns, but yeah, that package base has come up quite a bit. It's like, well, what does that mean either for the installer or something like it or a replacement or what? Um,
Well, I
I'm
think the
doing.
install,
Go ahead.
sorry to
No,
cut
go
you off
ahead.
there.
No, no, no.
I think the install will probably remain the same. That it works, like it's simple, but it works, right?
Yep.
Uh, it's just the underlying infrastructure that it's going to use is going to be package based kind of a thing, right? Because right now, like this is basically a tarball or the old package format. Geez, I forget what it is. PKG.
Distribution sets of currently.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
So they want that new command to kind of work for the core operating system and the user land. So both kind of a thing, right?
This came up from another call. Is anyone using Open Power and various other PowerPC modern incarnations?
Boy, not myself.
Not
Geez, I
yourself.
wish I had the hardware, but no.
So there is a surprising amount of hardware in both the FreeBSD cluster and the OSU, OSL, Oregon State University Open Source Lab here in Oregon. And some discussions have begun about, hey, what would it in fact take to make OpenPower a tier one platform? So
Or
we're
is it
building
not
that
tier one
checklist.
right now?
It's
Okay.
not, meaning like there are no VM images, there
Yeah,
are
yeah.
a few packages, and naturally on the Beehive call, we're curious if Beehive could work on it. Justin's interested, Hibbets. And there, it may even be, well, it has such good native virtualization that might just need a thin front end to make that happen. So we're investigating a bunch of that. So if you're interested, jump on in the discussion.
Well, personally, I can't comment. I don't have the access to that infrastructure. It'll be great to test it, but no, I have no
Cool.
experience.
I hear you. And Jan, you made some really good points about how it's, be it what loose memory model is even beneficial for verifying correctness on other platforms. So yeah, a bunch of us are building up the elevator pitch for that. And no, granted, you don't just find many open power platforms on Craigslist, but such is life. Moving on, other ideas, topics, questions. BSD CAN is coming up. They seem nice.
I do have one question
Yes,
regarding jails or containers in essence, generally,
please,
right?
you've come to the
Because
right
that's what it is,
spot.
right?
Yes, yes.
I guess my biggest gripe, and not that's actually not a gripe, because okay, the commercial world is all Kubernetes and all that stuff, right? How can somebody leverage FreeBSD in that kind of context? Like, because they're expecting KAS and all that stuff, which is not compatible with jails, right? But we all know jails is the same shit. It does it all. But that's the commercial, I guess, roadblock that I see. I don't know if you do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, right. John DeBossi from the Beehive calls has been bumping into a bunch of Kubernetes, and yes, there are expectations, a bit like people coming from Proxmox wanting, jail
Right.
IDs rather than
Well, not
names.
even that. Like I'm
Um,
like me trying to get a job in my field, and
yeah.
it's all AWS cloud stuff, and you got to know Kubernetes, and nobody asks for FreeBSD, right? So it's if there's a way to make, I guess, gels be compliant and work with the same automation tools that the established commercial tools do, I think that would be pretty awesome. I think that's
Jan, you had
kind
some
of what
comments on
FreeBSD
OCI
has
runtime.
traditionally and always lacked.
So Jan, you've
Yeah.
got some comments on the OCI runtime and Podman. I mean, are they compatible or just different or what? And
Well,
yes,
you
it's
either need FreeBSD container images or images which run under the Linux 64 ABI.
I think the question is generally speaking, like because the commercially established tools that are Kubernetes, that's all that stuff, they're not exactly compatible with FreeBSD jails, right? It'd be great if
They
they
can be
were.
made to
Yes.
they can be made to be compatible. It's just like, for example, Kubernetes can be used with Partner instead of Docker and other runtimes, but it takes some effort, and you basically have to do the whole integration journey and a little bit of porting because there is no Kubernetes at like 3 or 4 different Kubernetes stacks, which is similar to picking the right releases of all the packages to build an Xorg non-release. Yeah.
Okay, so I should probably look into Podman, is what you're saying.
If you want runtime, then the other option is if you just want I would need a cluster service the manager, then maybe you want to look at the Nomad instead of
Yeah.
Kubernetes, because that has drivers for FreeBSD jails included. It even plays nice with the pod jail manager, which has its own driver, which then uses the pod conventions. But that is not Kubernetes, it's just a re-implementation of the same ideas. Just depends on what, if you want it to be Kubernetes or you want it to be a cluster of managed
Kubernetes
jails.
and also Docker as well, because it's like every dev, there's an instruction to deploy an app, its own Docker, right? You can't. I don't know how you do that on FreeBSD. And I know FreeBSD can do it. It's got other tools that do it, and it has had it for a long time. It's just not the general commercially accepted method, I guess.
You can't just take a Linux container image and expect it to work natively on FreeBSD.
I mean, there are tools, I've seen them and I've used them that do essentially the same thing, but it's just not commercially viable, accepted.
The biggest technical hurdle right now is that FreeBSD Linux 64 ABI does not implement enough of C groups to allow containers using systemd to run. Okay. Which means if you have something like Alpine or some other very small distribution, then it may just work with the Linux 64 ABI. But yeah, it's not something you want to run in production.
So the problem is that the Linux isms, the C groups.
Yeah, the images are, so my kind of headcanon for Docker images is that they're statically linked executables for the new millennium.
Yes, right.
Because Linux is unable to agree how to do software packaging, so they kind of gave up and just shipped the whole userland.
Yeah.
And that means that you have the only interface you can re-implement is the system call interface. Because on Linux, you can't even rely on a specific libc, especially in small containers. It's quite common to use something like Moodle or diet libc or other non-glibc libc implementations. So you have to implement the system calls, which FreeBSD does, but only a large subset and always out of date.
Yeah, I guess ultimately the issue is just pure portability, right? There's no portable way of doing this.
Drop it in a VM.
Yeah, if you take ownership and run it natively, then yeah, sure. But at that point, you can no longer use Docker or Kubernetes or Helm or whatever as technical debt as a service.
Yeah. Alrighty. So yeah, it's almost a shame that jail did not get the attention it perhaps deserved over the last 20
yeah, I agree.
Plus years.
You're right. That stuff's been around. Like it's not Linux came. Oh, like we reinvented the wheel. No, the wheel was already invented.
Yep. Yep. Well, your fresh perspective is definitely appreciated. So, I mean, although I don't suggest you just start posting, hey, I'm looking for pot jobs, but yeah, it would be good to find, what compatible language matches sort of marketing, if you will, because it's not always
just
clear what
I
we
guess
can
it's
do.
a little just frustrating because I know in my heart that like FreeBSD has all the technology that's required to get the job done. And there are tools like for jail management, even what's the Russian one? Geez, I can't recall. But it was very detailed. It had a lot of functionality that we could do clusters and stuff. Sorry?
FreeBSD, maybe?
Which one?
FreeBSD?
I don't recall. I know it was a Russian project. That's all I remember. like management for jails, essentially.
Okay. Hmm.
But it went above that. Like you could manage different servers across, so like a cluster of servers, so to speak, and you could have configurations that okay, this one needs Apache and Nginx or whatever app installed, and it would just do it. And it's essentially basically the same stuff, just but different. You
Yep.
know, it's not the commercial standard, but it does the same thing. But trying to get into that commercial space with saying this, like, oh, you know, a lot of people just don't recognize it, or they don't trust it, maybe because they don't know it. I think that's FreeBSD's always has been the biggest problem. The commercial, the way the commercial in the industry views it. We all know, like Netflix and all that. Oh, they all use it. It's used everywhere. But you ask the average developer or anybody in IT that's 20 years or younger, they never heard of FreeBSD.
True. And one of the most pleasant surprises has been the activity on Discord, which is bringing people to these calls, bringing people to maybe Thursday's AMA, Ask Me Anything. And so well, I can speak for what I do. I bring these calls together to help polish down those rough spots that are snagging people as they go and determining what production issues are and demands are and what's missing because there are countless awesome home labs out there, but when it comes down to running the stuff where there are actual dollars on the line and you can't just spend all weekend rebuilding it, it's they're yeah, it's exciting.
But also, not to be so negative, like I've had a lot of success like using FreeBSD commercially. Like even in my last job, like I said, I converted the whole backend infrastructure to a FreeBSD system.
That'd
So
be a great conference talk, by the way. I hear those at
yeah,
conferences.
and they
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
And like the references I use, like, okay, we're in the messaging industry. Look at WhatsApp. They started out as FreeBSD,
Yep.
and
Hotmail.
like yeah, well, yeah, even going back that far.
Going back, yeah.
But see, that's what kind of rang the bell with the boss, manager, whatever you want to call him, upstairs.
Yep.
They made that connection. It's like, okay, it worked for them. Okay, maybe this guy's making sense. And they did agree to do it. So it did work out, but it's always kind of a fight to get it in there.
Yep.
But you know what? Honestly, like, not being biased because I love FreeBSD, but it was actually a good solution. Like it was a very efficient, well-designed system. It was rock solid, like ZFS and all that. That just made a lot of stuff so much easier, like backups and just having snapshots and all that stuff. It was just amazing, right?
Amen. You're preaching to the converted. You've watched my last 2 years of talks. It's often about just containing Windows because, well, in some situations, they don't need to know it's CFS and FreeBSD behind the scenes. It just suddenly works and you can roll back to previous points effortlessly and just, yeah, makes.
Oh, yeah, but that's not something your boss manager would know or know what the hell you're talking about. But yeah.
Correct. Anyhow, we're at 45 in. Anything else? Topics, questions, ideas, funny t-shirt jokes. There are some little quotations here which sometimes make it to the list of snarky t-shirt ideas. And no, not one of them has made it to an actual t-shirt yet.
Well, if I was going to
Yes.
make a t-shirt, I think it would say new lines are the new comma.
I like it.
No, new lines should be new lines, commas should be commas.
Ah. Yeah. No. Each should be. I don't know.
There's a reason we have a comma and a new line. Like, what are you trying to say?
This reminds me of a trivia point. Pardon me. About Cronta. Pardon. if you have a cron tab table entry, if you don't put a new line at the end of it, it won't run.
Is that true? Like, I don't know if like by cron jobs that there's a new line at the end, but it would not execute the last line. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Correct. It's in the doc.
Oh, well, yeah. I guess I didn't run into that, but generally I put a enter after the line.
Yep. Do it as a test when you're interviewing someone. Give them a host.
Okay, good to keep
Put a
in
new
mind.
line at the end. Ask them why
Right.
the cron tab does.
It won't parse it until the carriage return.
Needs. You have to consult the documentation, but I know that if you don't have a new line,
RTFM.
Yeah. Lasse, did your internet magically come to work?
I don't know. What do you think, Michael? Can you hear what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Great. Love it. Ship it. What you got? I hear you might have some clean updates.
Yes.
Let
And
her rip.
sure. And just break the stream of words if the connection is failing me again.
We'll let you know.
But yeah. So in the when I do have some spare time, I've been working on Docker Compose like functionality because I would really like to use that for my own stuff. That is a bit larger chunk than initially expected, but it's coming along quite well. So there's that, and then more importantly, I have my own jail host that really needs some love and some updating. So I really hope that I could use Kleene for that, and then test the software along the way. And I'm doing that at the moment, and it's actually working very much as expected. I have squashed a few bugs. So hopefully I can make a new release with all the bug fixes soon.
Okay.
But at least I'm trying to replace all of my manually set up jails with Kleene containers. Nothing fancy. It's running a web server, IRC server, and stuff like that. But it works as intended. And then I've had a few discussions with people that have been posting some issues on GitHub. That's been nice. And I actually had a question for you guys here.
Please.
So some person was pointing out that using the container ID for the name is a bad idea, and I actually agree and would like to fix it. But then I was a bit unsure if I should also how I should deal with the host name parameter. Should that also be the app name, or at least as a default? Should that be the name of the container? At the moment, it's just the ID as well. So the name and the host name are both the container ID at the moment, and I will switch so the name will become the name of the container. But what about the host name? I'm not sure if there's any good practices out there for how to deal with that.
May I ask what the problem is between the jail name versus ID? I know there's performance issue when you actually look both of them up, and the ID obviously is not static, what the jail name should be. So yeah, again, the question is, what is the issue there? Like, if you can explain that.
Yeah, so the issue is the ID is just very.
It varies.
Yeah, and it's just it's just random numbers and letters, and I think that was the frustrating part.
Correct. Yeah, the ID will change every time you restart that gel. It's going to have a different ID. but the jail name should be static. As far as like looking them up, I know there were some performance issues between the two, but that's kind of like when you're in the thousands.
Yeah. The jail ID as such it varies, but the container ID is the same if you stop and start it in Kleene at least. It just follows the Docker way of doing it.
Okay, so you're talking like Docker ID versus jail ID. Obviously, they're probably different because I'm assuming Docker ID is static.
I'm talking about in Kleene, we have a container ID just in the same way as in Docker.
Okay.
Static?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. They are.
I must say, your project looks really interesting to me because you did it in Elixir and Erlang, correct?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Oh, well, I was just done talking about my last job. We actually, the backend was all Elixir and Erlang running on FreeBSD. So that kind of drew my attention to this project. I just look at your website, buddy. I don't know the details, but I'm gonna definitely look into the work you've done.
Cool. That would be really nice. I really need some people looking in, trying it out, posting comments, suggestions, and helping out if you have the time, of course.
like just looking at the front page, your web page, it looks like a nice, neat solution.
Yes, and I try to make it very Docker-like. So I just heard your discussion just before, and while it does
exactly.
not
That's what I was
support
talking about. Some kind of right on point, buddy.
I have a simple smoke test. If I search for Docker on the front page, okay, Docker files. If that's your audience, definitely, maybe have comparisons or resources for Docker users or migration advice just to welcome such folks.
Yes,
My
that's
opinion.
a good idea. Good idea. I have in the handbook section you're in right now, there's the get started menu that was actually trying to make the exact same. That was the exact same section in the Docker docs. I think they removed it, but I just adapted it to so that could be a very nice link.
There you go. Yeah.
So
basically clean for Docker users. Just make it super straightforward.
Yeah.
Oh, pretty pictures. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. Can you explain your project just a little bit? Like, okay, is this just another jail management project, or is it actually like Docker-like? Like, what is the difference in your project versus the other ones?
It's definitely intended to be Docker-like. So the command line interface resembles Docker's a lot. The commands are almost the same. Of course, you have some jail-specific commands like passing jail parameters and stuff like that, but otherwise it's more or less the same. Then I try to be the software tries to be really transparent with how jails work. So when you create a container and start it and so on, you can just use the tools you know from FreeBSD. So if you type JLS, you can just see the jail is running, and if you inspect a container, it should be pretty much transparent what is going on the FreeBSD side. So that's the whole idea, to make something that looks like Docker but is really native to FreeBSD.
Okay, well that sounds great to me, buddy. I'm gonna check out your project, and if I can, I'll comment on it. Sure, that's awesome. Thank you for doing the work.
Thank you, and I hope you give it a look and provide some comments. That would be nice. Thanks.
Would any of you like to be added to the weekly announcements of the calls? I just have a simple CC message rather than a fancy thing. Be it John, Mike, Lasse, if you're not there already.
I'm there already.
Okay, good. Well, great. Shall we call it good there? Let's see.
Yes.
Everyone's muted. Lasse, you're not muted. Would you like the honors? Hopefully you know what I'm referring to.
No, I don't, Michael, unfortunately.
Okay. From the regulars, like and subscribe. Something that Entrenig has advocated for quite thoroughly, and I'm kind of on the fence on it. Well, thank you, everyone. Catch you perhaps tomorrow for the open ZFS call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.